It's like you have all these things. I think about intersectionality, right? It's
Mm,
basically looking at things, and it's challenging because most people want to jump into one bucket or the other. But the true value is this hybrid mix of who you authentically are. And you
right,
were divinely orchestrated to grow up not in one neighborhood, but in between two neighborhoods. So you can have
right.
this purview of seeing. And now the decisions that you make are interestingly still the same, where you're looking at it from a purview perspective of seeing this full scope.
Right. And I think it goes back to if you can walk with kings nor lose your common touch. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think I've been blessed with that gift to say, like, I'm definitely not either of these two things, but I am though,
I am.
because I have to relate to both sides.
Mm-hmm. What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Coach Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, with another episode of Black Fathers Now. And look, we're going to have an awesome conversation today. And, you know, every so often I'll do elder conversations, but then periodically I'll bring in some young guns, right? And I say young gun for a reason because his last name is Gunn. But I bring some young brothers on because I really want us to hear perspectives on life, on journeys, you know, from all walks of life. And the brother that I have is my frat brother, Tony Gunn. Yeah, Rue, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is in the building for sure. But this young brother, man, it's interesting. He and I have a really dynamic connection because I was one of his football coaches back when he was 12 years old, back in the day. And, you know, I've watched him grow and mature and play college football and transfer, you know, go through the process of becoming, you know, a member of this illustrious fraternity, graduate from college. But when he and I talk and he talks about his goals and what he wants to do in life, and I look at the steps that he's taking now, it's interesting and it's also amazing to watch and follow how all of his life's journeys have come full circle to impact him and what he's doing now as a 20, how old are you, 24, 23? How old are you?
I'll be 26 this year. I'm 25 now.
Yeah, you're right. So 20 as a 25-year-old. So it's really interesting to hear life through his lens and the work he's doing directly connected with high school kids and what he's going to do in the future. I just really wanted him to come on and really share with the Black Fathers Now family, you know, some of his story. And so fellas, ladies listening to, because y'all like to tune into what we're talking about, let's welcome my man, my frat brother, Tony Gunn. What's up, brother?
Man, first of all, I just like to thank God, right, for waking me up one more time. I like to thank you, brother, because you know you've been an influential part of my life, and you kind of got to watch, you know, uh, front row everything that I accomplished, and I like to thank my mother who instilled in me everything that I know. I just have to give out, you know, all the thank yous and praises to her as well, because without her, obviously, I wouldn't be here physically. But she did mold me into the man that I am today. And she has a big village. She had a lot of help. My father, who was a very present father in my life, who was very proactive before he passed away. And then also to this current day, I have a whole bunch of uncles and aunties who kind of raised me. So I'm not without any thank yous, I think, once I hit all those.
My man. You know, and I really like that you start with giving a shout out to your village, right? You know,
Mhm.
there's an African proverb that it takes a village or a whole village to raise a child. And I think sometimes we forget about the whole village part because, you know, there are different components and everybody brings a different set of skill sets, of values, of ideals that come and get sprinkled into our journeys. And if we're not mindful of all those components that are parts of us, we sometimes miss the boat, and that then doesn't inform us with the steps that we're going to take. So I appreciate you for shouting out your village, my brother. And that being said, let's jump into your journey. You and I actually first connected. You were 12. We playing football with the baby road
Right.
runners. I was one of the coaches, and I remember this young, stout little joker playing defensive line. He was actually one of the younger guys,
Yeah.
Tony Gunn that was on the squad. But I also remember right around that time, a little after that season, I remember that's when your father passed away. Because I remember
Right.
we actually came, as a team, we came to your father's funeral. But
Right.
talk to me a little bit about your journey growing up, your inspirations and everything, brother.
Well, everybody knows I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, just in a small cul-de-sac, 5 minutes from East Knoxville. I'm slap dab in the middle between East Knoxville and North Knoxville. So I pretty much got to see both sides of the coin. Um, Growing up, it's really just been, like I said, my village. I've always had a support system. I can't even lie about that. Even during hardships, even during troubles and all the stuff that comes along with it. I still had somebody or something to fall back on. I entered in grade school and all that stuff, inspired by athletes like Ray Lewis and different stuff like that. And of course, the goal was right. We all wanted to grow up and be NFL football players. But God laughed at my plans, and he kind of deviated that into something that's way bigger than what I ever expected and way bigger than who I am, just personally. I think that if it wasn't for the redirection, I definitely wouldn't be in this place that I am today. So I've been working in education, adult education, youth education for a couple of years now. And I actually graduated the University of Tennessee with a degree in sociology and a minor in political science. So I've always wanted to study like people, the interaction of people, and how they have a certain behavior to a certain thing over a course of time. So being able to study those things in school, getting that passion just for people and the way that people move, and then having to influence all of these young children from all kinds of different nationalities and backgrounds, and being able to merge and meet in the middle is excellent. So that's kind of like my story
Mm-hmm.
in a nutshell.
Well, hold on, man. It's interesting. So I know a little bit more about you, right? And so what's interesting about you talking about being an individual who grows up in the middle, right? Like,
Right.
you kind of sit on a perch in which you have the purview of seeing multiple communities, multiple sides, multiple belief structures, multiple backgrounds, ethnicities, all of that. And it's interesting, your degrees in sociology and political science, and we'll get into what your ultimate trajectory is or your ultimate goals are. But
Right.
the thing that's interesting, you're working now in a high school, right?
Right.
Helping young folks, achieve their dreams. But prior
Mhm.
to this, you also worked with individuals who had like mental handicaps, correct?
Yeah, so actually that was a couple jobs ago. My actual last job, I was working with people who ran into a hard time financially. I was working with students who had just came out of juvenile or just came out of prison and seeking education and was seeking re-entry into society. So seeing, I came from a bad neighborhood. I came from this situation financially. I need to get back up on my feet. Seeing people that were in that position and able to persevere, that kind of like molded and shaped my story. And now that I'm working in the high school, I can see where those decisions are being made and kind of correcting them before they get to that point. So I was playing, catcher, and now I'm playing pitcher. It's kind of
Ooh.
like a two different sides of the coin type thing.
Dude, I'm gonna share something with you. So when you were speaking, it's interesting. Again, you mentioned God, and the thing is, God
Right.
don't make mistakes, right?
Not at all.
And a lot of times with our journeys in life, the gift is packaged or wrapped up in the pain or in the challenge, right?
Mhm.
So as a kid growing up, everyone wants to fit in. I don't care who you are. I don't care
Right.
how strong you are, how good you are, how great of an athlete, how beautiful, how pretty, how many girls like you. What I don't care who you are. As kids, we grow up wanting to fit in. And as adults, that doesn't change. And so when you're an individual who kind of grows up in, kind of outside of one neighborhood, but then not close enough to the other neighborhood, you're kind of like in the middle. You're not necessarily one who completely fits into this bucket, but you also don't fit into that bucket. And
Right.
as a kid, that poses a challenge because you like, dang, I want to be in this crew, but I don't live in this neighborhood, or I want to be with them, but I don't play on their team. I'm like in the middle. I'm like this hybrid. But it's
Mhm.
interesting how you grew up that way. Again, God don't make mistakes. And now you just mentioned your brief trajectory professionally where you worked with people with mental handicaps. You were working with individuals who fell on financial hard times. You were working with individuals who, who just reintroduced into society after being incarcerated or being part of the juvenile system. And now
Right.
you're working with, young folks in a high school setting, your actual former high school that you graduated from.
Right.
And we're gonna say, and as we add forward, as you apply and get into law school and you get your JD and you start doing things on that level, it's like you have all these things. I think about intersectionality, right? It's
Mhm.
basically looking at things, and it's challenging because most people want to jump into one bucket or the other, but the true value is this hybrid mix of who you authentically are, and you
Right.
were divinely orchestrated to grow up not in one neighborhood, but in between two neighborhoods. So you can
Right.
have this purview of seeing. And now the decisions that you make are interestingly still the same, where you're looking at it from a purview perspective of seeing this full scope.
Right. And I think it goes back to, if you can walk with kings nor lose your common touch.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been blessed with that gift to say, like, I'm definitely not either of these two things, but I am, though,
I am.
because I have to relate to both sides. I
Mm-hmm.
have to touch both sides. And if you can communicate the same message to both sides, each side is lacking something. If you got a lot of money, 9 times out of 10, your parents was out, working, doing this, that, and the third, getting to the money, and they didn't give you a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's a lot of people are missing. And if you don't have money at all, then you're obviously lacking resources, but you might be lacking that time as well. So how do you meet in the middle and say, we might have different socioeconomic statuses, but how do we fulfill that need? And that's where I come in, because I step in and I give that time. I
Mm-hmm.
give the personal connection and I say, hey, you're not there yet, but you're going to get there if you take these necessary steps. I think in our society with young people, and I'm so glad we got on this topic, in our society with young people, we often try to skip steps. I
Mm-hmm.
know I tried to with, going to law school, doing the public policy, doing economic development. And I'm saying, okay, there's an A, B, C, D, E, F, G to everything. There's a 1, 2, 3 to everything. Why am I trying to skip the step 10? Why am I trying to skip the Z when I have to go to A first? And I think that once we realize that as a society, as a community, and once our students realize that, then we wouldn't have to look at social media and see, oh, that guy was a billionaire. He hit big on TikTok. He got this, he got that, or she has this, she has that. We can look at our situation and we can say, I have this right now, and this is where I'm going.
Hold
So,
on. Hold on. I'm gonna throw something there, and this is so interesting that you're talking about it because you mentioned the poem "If," and you mentioned if I can walk with kings and keep your virtue, or no, walk with kings, don't lose the common touch. But we forget
right.
the other part of talk with crowds and keep your virtue. See,
Mhm.
that's the other part to it where it's like you need to be able to be amongst the people, but then not lose your virtue. But then you need to also be able to walk with kings and not become untouchable, right? And
Right.
very few people have that unique ability. And it's funny, you and I connect on a deep level because that's how I am. I'm a brother who can walk in with celebrities and walk with people who are high level, whatever, billionaires, millionaires, whatever, and have conversations and be comfortable. But then I'm also amongst the people and I can understand how to connect because I am one that's kind of like this hybrid mix as well. That's how I've been orchestrated. And my divine calling is becoming a bridge, connecting the dots because some people can only live in one and not the other. But you mentioned
Right.
something there with regard to steps, and it's interesting when we think about how our mind is orchestrated because your brain is basically it has the most caloric need or the highest caloric need in your body, right? So your brain uses more of the calories in your body than just about any other organ in your body. It's like 20% of what you consume is used by your brain, right? So your
Right.
brain is always looking for ways to become efficient. Okay. So there's a
Right.
natural tendency to how do I skip steps to become efficient? And the thing is, you mentioned that we need to follow steps, but the reality is, in some instances, it makes sense to be efficient, right? But in a lot of senses or in a lot of scenarios that matter, we need friction. Therefore, we need to go through the steps. We need to go through the process because without the process, we don't gain the understanding. Now, again, there's a, you want to have something easy to buy or easy to go or whatever. There are certain things you want efficiency, but in everything else, it's okay to have some friction. And kids need to understand that it's not a one size fit all. Everything's going to be 100 steps, or it's not going to be a one size fit all. Everything's supposed to just be 2 clicks. There's a hybrid mix, and we need to be able to toggle between both of them. It's perspective.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect perspective to have. And I don't think at any point in time you can ever really skip steps, like you said. It's really some steps were easier than others. You never skipped a step. It was just that because of my experience, because I went through what I went through, when I got to that roadblock, it was like, nah, I'm out the way with this one. This is easy. I can go ahead and knock this part out because I had the desire to want to be better. I had the desire to get where I wanted to go. And that's that grit and determination that you have.
It's interesting. I agree, but then I'll also push back just a little bit
Right.
because there are certain things that are okay to automate, right? The challenge is because of technology, we now have the capacity to automate everything, right? So you don't have to go and touch your vegetables and look through those stuff. And we no longer have to hunt for our meats and we don't have to farm and we don't have to do all of that. These are things that make it efficient. I'm hungry. I go through the drive-through and pick it up, or I call Uber Eats, or I call so-and-so and it can just get delivered. So I think that there are times in which skipping steps is okay, even from the standpoint of creating a system. You have some people, because you only have a limited intellectual capacity daily to make decisions. Some people will say it's okay to have it set on autopilot what you're going to eat for breakfast and lunch every day, or to have it laid out, well, hey, I wear a uniform every day, so I don't have to think about clothes. And you can create efficiencies, or, I can have my bills on auto pay, or I can have something set up here. To me, there are cases in which efficiency is important, but it's not every case. And we need to be open to going through processes and don't look to omit the process, but just realize that there are certain situations in which there may be a process that we don't have to necessarily physically go through because of technology or innovation.
And let me describe what you just described, because I think this is a perfect segue. Man, I'm going to tell you this. The steps wasn't skipped. They were just already done by somebody else. And I think that's where God puts us sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes we have to understand our village, understand that somebody put in the work so you didn't have to go to that.
Ooh.
You didn't have to go to that step. My father and my mother crawled so I can walk and I can run. That's exactly what it is. So we shouldn't be ashamed when we do have that automation right there. When we had that automation, like we can just skip that step completely, but it wasn't us skipping it. Somebody did it on the front end so that we can jump over that hoop. So
hold on. Let me tell you something, bro. That is why I always start the interviews out with shout outs. Right. That's why I start with shout outs. I interviewed a brother who's a stunt motorcycle rider. He was in Bad Boys 3 doing the motorcycle stunts and traveled all over the world. He's big time. And what was interesting was he said in movies, if you look at the credits, before the movie starts, all the important people get mentioned up front. You ever see like at the beginning of a movie starring so-and-so, produced by executive producer, all the people who are important get mentioned up front. Now at the very end is when they list everybody else, right?
Right.
And so I thought about that and I was like, because I was always doing the shout outs up front. That's what you mentioned when you mentioned that, yes, you may not have to physically go through this step, but maybe your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, maybe a mentor, an uncle, a teacher, somebody a coach, somebody on your behalf may have gone through that step to afford you the opportunity. That's why it's so important for us to be grateful and to be mindful of understanding that I don't care who you are, you did not do this by yourself. I don't care who you are. Somebody. And I'm gonna jump in one more thing. Somebody just sent me something recently, and it was talking about like Jeff Bezos, and they said, yeah, he's hundreds of billions of dollars, but Jeff Bezos was given $300,000 by his parents. Or Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, but Elon Musk's dad owned like a gem mine in apartheid South Africa. Not Warren Buffett, it was Bill Gates's mom sat on the board with one of the the CEO of IBM or something like that. So it's like all of these things that, yes, they may have been smart, but they didn't do this thing alone and by themselves. And we have to be mindful of that in our own journeys as well.
We definitely have to be mindful of that. What society would call nepotism, I just say it's just being sane. You know, like that just makes the most perfect sense for Tony Gunn to hit these strides right now. So when I have children, when I have grandchildren, all the students that we raising up right now in our communities, they'll be able to say, well, Tony helped me do this. Tony helped me do that. He paved the way for this. So I don't even have to go through that.
There you go. And somebody paved the way for Tony.
Exactly. It's a respect thing. It's always respect. And it reminds me of the story of when, and I hate to get all, churchy with it or whatever, but it reminds me of the story in the Bible where Jesus was washing the disciples' feet. And the custom in the Jew custom was, when you enter somebody's house, you always wash their feet. And the moral of the story is always, even on your journey, you might hit a stride of success, but always remember to wash somebody else's feet. There's always a youth who will pass this way, building that bridge. Make sure you are always connecting the dots when somebody comes behind you. Make sure you always lifting as you climb. That's how you sustain your community.
Now, in thinking about and speaking of sustaining the community and community action and doing what you're called to do and listening to that purpose, that thing that's inside of you, talk to us a little bit about your trajectory, what you have going on, law school, what your big visions are, and we're going to wrap this thing up really quick because I know you got to get back to what you got going on.
Right. So eventually I'll go back and get a set of degrees. I'll probably get a master's.
I will.
I will. You're right. So I'll get a master's in instructional design, and then I'll go off and get my law degree as well. And the reason why I want to merge the two is I think it's very important that we invest in our students' education in the digital age, but also we have people advocating for our students in those big arenas, in the public policy arena. So not only knowing the technology to help our students, but learning the law behind the technology so that we can be efficient and effective in our communities. So that's exactly what I'm going to go do. And right now, God has got me into this college and career access role because I can look at a student and I can look at everything that they've ever been through as far as academia wise and what they explain to me as far as their personal life. And I say, okay, let's plan out the next steps to your life, because what you're doing right now is what's going to affect later. It's the passport to the future. That's what Malcolm X said. That's what education is. And all those who are going to be prepared tomorrow, prepare for it today. So let's do that right now. And I feel like that's exactly where God has me.
Man, it's interesting. As you were talking, initially we like to use the term bridge builder, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that you're not necessarily a bridge builder. You are simply a transporter, right? So you're sitting on the edge of the island in which this kid or this person has to traverse to something new. And guess what? That kid might need to go across a bridge. That kid might need to get in a boat. That kid might need to swim. That kid might need to fly on an airplane. That kid might need to get into a helicopter. But because of your perspective and your purview of being this brother that sits at the intersection of so many different perspectives, you're now gifted with the ability to not just build a bridge, because guess what? Everybody don't need a bridge. I need to fly, right? So maybe you build a runway for them. Or this person doesn't need to fly. This person needs to swim because that's part of their growth and development. That's part of the process they need to go through. So what you need to do is you need to give them a life jacket, make sure they get their energy up and push them off into the water to go swim, right? Whatever it is, you're able to give that to them. And we're not limited to just building bridges. We create an opportunity for them to transport in the direction they need to go, however they are supposed to do that.
Right. Man, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for having me on this show, man. And thank you for giving me a platform to voice my opinions and my views and just tell a little bit about my story. It's hard to get this 25, 26 years in 30 minutes, but I think you encompassed it pretty well. And I kind of want to leave people with something, because I think that we always let our mediated reality dictate our thought of what success is, or our thought of where, God placed us. We shouldn't let anybody on the outside just solely influence. We'll have some influence, but solely influence what we do and who we are, man. And I say this: success is in the person who created their life and is enjoying it. They created their life and is enjoying it. So the journeys are definitely not going to be the same. They're definitely unique. But if you created the life that you live and you're enjoying it right now, then you are successful. You are successful.
If you're living the life that you created, I would even say you're living the life that is flowing through you, that you're supposed to live, because you didn't create it. This was created for you. And as an and you're enjoying the process, you are a success. Brother, man, I appreciate you, man. Are you on social media? Are you active, in which people can follow you? Where can folks go to get more about you?
All right, so you can look at me on Facebook. You can either friend me or follow my page at Tony Gunn II. It's pretty simple. TonyGunn, Roman numeral 2. You can also access me on Twitter at Gun for Real. So that's GUNN number 4 real. And also on Instagram, Gun the Professor. I drop gems about economics. I drop gems about education. And I also definitely drop gems about having your spiritual life intact. So it's very unique. I feel like my life's journey is very unique, and everything that I talk about, I'm dealing with currently, or I just dealt with it. So we're always in the eye of the storm, and that's where we find our deliverance.
In the eye of the storm is where we're going to find our deliverance. Brother, I salute you. I'm proud of you, and I want you to continue doing what you do. And fellas and ladies listening too, this is just a window, because 10 years from now, when y'all see Tony Gunn doing this and doing that and creating and doing all this social change, and you can look back and say, like, you know what? We heard about this brother first down there in Knoxville, Tennessee. We heard about him first on Black Fathers Now. So as always, y'all subscribe, share this thing out, be blessed, well, and wise, and I'll holler at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.